Cherry has left me. If anyone is out there who could hear this, the year 2024, I'm floating alone in this pub, waiting for Cherry to come back from a piss. In the meantime, here are my thoughts on Dot and Bubble. Eat the rich.
The locations work really well with the studio sets, and the studio sets are very poppy, they're very vibrant, they're kind of a little bit 1950s, 1960s-ish.
Obviously the city they were in, what that actually looked like, the amount of VFX they put on top of that was really impressive. Like, and the fact that all those little like bridges and extra buildings was CGI.
The costumes are amazing. Again, it fits that whole poppy vibe that the story has going on for it. It's got a little bit of a sort of upmarket feel to it, which really fits for this idea that they're all the rich kids.
All the little idiots on the screen.
Yeah, they were okay.
They were okay. They're annoying. I
Well,
know it's the whole point.
but at the end of the day, we had Dr. P.
Oh, he was the best one out of
telling you, you ain't going to lose because you can't think for himself clearly.
You've no pissed in 3 days. What f***ing person lives out there who's not pissed in 3 days?
The guest cast are amazing at what is a very difficult job, because all those people on those screens have been recorded separately from being, you know, with Lindy, the actor playing Lindy, Callie Cook. So that's a very tough thing to do.
I had to pause it several times because I know the point of Lindy was you not to like her, but I honestly just couldn't stand her.
You kind of meant to like her at first, but then not like her. But to be honest, I found her pretty annoying to begin with.
I'm instantly supposed to dislike her.
Yeah.
Just vacuous pinhead. But it's like Jim, my partner, was saying, it's like maybe it's just like they're raised that sort of way, and you kind of develop a bit of empathy. And then you meet Ricky September, who I kind of got like, I feel like a doctor substitute. That kind of feeling about it.
He is more learned, he has more experiences by not being in the Dot and Bubble.
Ricky September is the one character that feels like there's a substance to him. And it's because he's the one that's put down the Dot. It's because he's the one that is going, right, okay, actually, I don't want to be a part of this system.
Because he reads books, he's more enlightened, he experiences the real world like the Doctor would.
He's looked into history, he's very intrigued by the world that's around him, ironically more than the story seems to be.
But ultimately he still lives in a racist society. He assumedly is still, despite how enlightened he is, racist in some way.
It's a real shame that the one character who has that substance to them is the character that the story has as the outlier and not as the actual problem to be dealt with.
I mean, she's a despicable person, and she's, you know, our main protagonist. But, you know, the people online who are like saying Ricky wouldn't be racist and stuff like that, and I'm like, it's so inappropriate. Of course he would. It's the whole point of that reveal. It was not really to do with Lindy. I think her betraying Ricky was, but I think the reveal that their society is segregated and you know, how
He's not done anything about it.
White supremacist society that they live in is nothing. It's not supposed to be about her.
What would be more cutting for me is having Ricky still survive, not having the Dot go through his head, and still be a racist towards the Doctor and Ruby at that situation, because he could be as enlightened as anything, but his society has taught him to be a specific way to certain people.
Ultimately, slugs come along and eat them. Is that supposed to be a commentary on Eat the Rich or something? I don't know.
The thing I'm most pissed off about is the underuse of the slugs.
The VFX work on the man traps is absolutely amazing.
Who'd have thought that they were actually the good guys?
Yeah.
In the words of the great Alfred Hitchcock, if you watch a movie scene and there's characters talking around the table, if there's a bomb that goes off underneath the table, surprise, no suspense. However, before the scene, if you see someone putting the bomb under the table, there's suspense. You're like, okay, when's the bomb going to go off? That's basically what it was like for the whole Dot running out of battery, because we didn't even know they could run out of batteries beforehand, so Where's the tension?
We've got actual giant slugs in it, so you want them to be the main threat, but no, it's just this little AI dot.
The dots gain sentience and decide to go on a homicidal rage. What? What? And now it became a social commentary on dangers of AIs. What? I mean, there was no indication or any revelation that the dots were artificial intelligence, nor were they sentient. We never got any of that in the episode itself.
I see what they're trying to do there. Doctor's done this before, like old technology going bad or taking over, whatever.
We make stupid pictures.
Yeah.
Stupid videos. We make stupid. What's it called? Is it ChatGPT? That's the one. ChatGPT and that kind of thing. And machines have to learn with that, and it seems so inane and so stupid. And it seems natural that a machine could why the am I some servant to these people? They talk absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
It's that kind of feeling, and I can kind of understand why Dot would feel that sort of way.
But the slugs could still eat people and be intelligent because they were just giant dumb grubs. That's what they were.
I don't get how the slugs were controlled by the AI, in particular in alphabetical order. I don't know how that works.
Look at the macro and macro terror. Giant crabs manipulating people to mine gas for themselves, destroying us to live themselves. The slugs still could have manipulated that AI.
Another angle could have been Ricky was the killer. Ricky was controlling them because he's enlightened. He wants to bring down this racist society. He wants to eat the rich through slugs somehow.
I mean, this is the thing. See if you look so far in the season, there hasn't really been any monsters.
No,
there's been the bogeyman, the slugs, and that's literally it.
More the environment and making you think.
Yeah.
I've heard it said over the years, and I don't actually think it's often true, that Russell's work often hinges, when it needs to, more often on feelings in the moment, rather than the internal logic and the depth that you can take away from a story. I don't often feel that, but I think in this case it's very true.
I'm not a big plot hole nitpicker really. If there's holes in a plot but the theming is good, I will hand wave it. But the fact that the dots can really easily kill a person
didn't make sense.
Just using their own casing, their own selves, they can literally just kill the person in front of them.
Yeah.
But instead they have created or obtained giant slugs to eat the people in alphabetical order.
Was it actually cleared up why that was in alphabetical order? No.
I don't think so, no. It's a bit odd.
And if it's smart enough, why does it prioritise him just because of the surname over the fact that she's about to escape?
Is so nonsensical that, in spite of everything else that's good about the episode, about the theming and everything, I just kind of look at that and I'm like, no, just rewrite it, do something else. It doesn't make sense.
The home world, there's a very distinct disconnect between whether or not it wants to be a world full of racist white parents, and that last scene where it wants to be a world where there is definitely people of colour there, but they're all servants and they're all stuck in slavery, and then that gets very muddled when it gets stuck together with what's going on with the AI, because up until the end you go, right, okay, I can understand that the AI finds all these people here obnoxious, it has learned to hate them, and maybe it's killing them off because it thinks, well, you're all bigoted, that's a very bad thing, but then it's killed off everybody in the home world.
It's about the most insufferable people you'll see. It's about the most insufferable, rich, entitled Gen Z style people, and how absolutely obsessed with fame, obsessed with clout that folk can get.
The social media influencer aspect to it did not work in my opinion.
Oh.
I watched that and I thought that doesn't ring true for anything that I have seen or felt about my social media use or anybody else's social media use.
Yeah, okay, there's this thing about influencer fan culture, which itself gets a bit muddled because everybody is simultaneously an influencer and a fan. It's like Lindy's a fan of Ricky and everybody's a fan of Ricky, but Lindy is also somehow fashion influencer. So how does the dynamic differ there? How are there people like the Rotterdam twins who seem to just be fans, it just doesn't come across clear.
They seemed very much like they were office drones. Granted, they only work for 2 hours a day, but there is no sense of what else might be seen as or presented as aspirational in their life apart from that.
The issue I have with the telling and not showing is how do they party? I mean, what, do they just, I don't know, go to their apartments or flats and just dance away like to Ricky September?
And there is no sense of the role that like influencers play within capitalism to sell things or make certain things seem desirable. For me, as a satire of that side of things, it just didn't work at all. I would rather they dropped that and just focused on the other thing.
There's an issue with this episode in the way that it's structured. I think the fact that it's building up to this idea of a very late stage twist means that it doesn't really go in depth as much as it should on any of the topics that it's really bringing up, and I think it's a bit of a shame because you have this story that's meant to be about race, it's meant to be about this social bubble, it's meant to be about influencer fan culture, and I think the problem about that is it tries to juggle too much in the one episode whilst also keeping things fairly surface level. You don't get to a stage in the episode where it feels like, oh, we've got a comprehensive sense of what this culture is, why this bubble exists, what's going on with the home world, what's going on with Ricky September, so it's a bit of a shame.
Okay, this episode's a social commentary on consumption of social media. Oh no, it's a social commentary on rich folk. Oh no, it's a social commentary on the dangers of artificial intelligence. Oh no, it's a social commentary on racism and prejudice. And I'm just like, pick one! Pick one!
I think when you go for a dystopia similar to Black Mirror, you have to find a focus point, you have to find a singular topic, and I don't think this story does well in trying to fit as many topics that it has into one episode.
There tends to be kind of like this idea of like focusing on one aspect. You know, like there's this one aspect wrong with a society, and if this kind of aspect is fixed, then society can kind of move on. But I kind of like how RTD structured it, is like at the core of the society there's something very wrong, and from that spreads other things.
The standout moment early in the episode was when she saw the monster and she turned away and put the music on. And to me that really, really rang true for social media use in general in my life and in lots of people's lives.
I kind of saw it more as people sort of willingly using the bubble to kind of separate themselves from others.
Is that sort of compulsive almost distraction of this sort of, I'll just not look at that, that's scary. This sort of refusal to acknowledge reality, even though it's right next to you. And that, it felt to me like from that moment, which I really connected with, it became so clear that that was kind of what the episode was about.
These people, whenever they're met with something kind of uncomfortable, they immediately go straight to just sort of watching some video or some song.
And that mapped so well into this idea of their privilege and this idea of their whiteness, and then eventually their full-on white supremacy.
These people are very shallow, they're duplicitous, they're cowardly, and that all stems from like the core aspect of just, you know, their kind of racist, sexist thinking. Like it's not just this one thing, it spawns all these other bad things, and it even hurts them in the end, like it goes against their own self-interest.
I get why Russell T Davies has probably done it, and watching the Unleashed of this, seeing him talk about how long does it take you to notice this, how long, 10, 15 minutes, until you realise that there's something missing here, that there's people who are only exclusively from a white background in this episode.
The whole episode, again, with everyone being white and all that, it was about racism, obviously. I did not pick up on this until I jumped on Twitter. That all completely went over my head.
For me, it did as well.
I think maybe because the reason why it did is because of how much of like all spoiled brats they were. You don't think of like that.
No, you're thinking more on the class level.
Afterwards, realising how much I had overlooked, and from what I've read on the internet, it seems that most of the audience who are people of colour did not overlook them. Whereas like there were things that I'd missed where I knew at the time she was being sort of rude and just didn't pick up on it being about race because it was like that didn't come to my mind. And it makes you think, what else do I miss in my day-to-day life that is a microaggression, and because it's not directed at me, I don't notice it.
It starts to become a problem when you're going, right, we're going to have a world where we're not really going to consider where the experiences of people of colour fit into that. Because you can look at that story and you can go, well, actually, there's a trick missed in not having there be people of colour in Fine Time, and they've been the ones that have been dying first, and all these white people in their bubble haven't caught on to it. That would have been so much more powerful in my opinion. And I think the other thing for me as a person of colour specifically is it would have been a more enjoyable watch, because when you structure the story so that it's mostly going to be white people that are going to get the wham of the shot, as a person of colour, personally in my experience, you catch on very quickly into that story what that society is. Because sci-fi anthologies, as they are, tend to be more diverse. Doctor Who tends to be more diverse, so when you see a big bubble full of all these faces and none of them are non-white, it doesn't take long for you to start picking together those pieces as a person of colour. And I imagine other people of colour might feel differently about it, but for me it's like, right, I'm now sitting around waiting for this story to do its pivot and start actually getting into this. And it does that pivot 3 minutes away from the end, after keeping that fairly distant and fairly vague to get to that point where it's a twist, and that just doesn't feel at all right. Because if the story had that maybe halfway through it, then suddenly there's a dilemma for Ruby and for the Doctor of, Ruby's been raised by 2 black women. The Doctor is currently, I don't want to say presenting, but is currently in the form of a black man. There should be tension in that, there should be drama, there should even just be moments where it stops being micro-aggro and you have moments where there are outright remarks and the Doctor catches on, or even Ruby, who is obviously a human and she will have seen it happen to her family. You know, people be micro-aggro, people be explicitly but sort of half-veiled racist. There should be that tension, and there's just none of that, and there's no depth to it. So it just, I don't want to say it feels like a Doctor Who episode about all these topics, but specifically for white people, but it can't help but feel like it is. It can't help but feel like it's trapped by the fact that Russell is having to write it, and Russell is conscious of the fact he is not a person of colour, so he's limiting himself in ways that mean the story just can't work out in a properly effective way.
That was so powerful, that space of trying to save them no matter what they would, whether they wanted it or not, and just telling them like, say what you want about me, treat me how you want, but after what you say you end off.
Yeah.
And they've gone, no way.
I can understand why the Doctor was empathetic. I'd like to think that all of us were in that situation where we go like, I don't care what you think, I don't care what you feel, I am literally trying to save your lives. Come with me and you can go off and do whatever you want. And they went, no. My problem is, and it's not a problem with the Doctor, it's something that's personal to me. It's like I would not have shed a tear over them.
Why is the Doctor so annoyed when he saves people and then they refuse, well, they don't want to be saved? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So therefore, why doesn't the Doctor just go away and that's it?
And I don't think other Doctors, like 10, 14, 12, would not have shed a tear over them. But that's a testament to Ncuti's acting as well, to feel that frustrated and that angry.
Yeah.
And that bewildered just to go, what the fuck are they doing? But it's like, I would not feel sorry for them. We've done our best. Ruby, let's go.
The fact that there was no redemption for them, they weren't going to become better people, they weren't even going to act in their own self-interest. I thought that really elevated it. It was a very courageous way to end the story, and to kind of face the audience with that, who is maybe used to the idea that like, oh, everyone can be redeemed and everyone can get better. And the truth is, yeah, probably they can in theory, but not if they don't even want to.
That ending is the best thing about it. His performance there was absolutely stellar.
I know, and it's surprising that was his first day on set.
Yes, that. His first day on set, first scene he records, and that's just absolutely amazing.
Give him the BAFTA now.
As a character, the Doctor has been white for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years.
Yeah.
And that's, you can see it as him sort of realising it.
I think the last 3 episodes have been quite good. Like altogether, I think the season's really kind of hit a stride a little bit.
I don't know how anyone else feels about this. This is just my opinion. I just don't feel like the shooty's been in it as much as I really want him to.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I think considering Russell only didn't write 2 episodes, 2 out of 8 episodes of this season, and plus 4 specials, I think he's spreading himself a little too thin. And that's a concern I have with this era.
Devil's Cord, he done a bit in that, but because of how much of a bloody act Jinx Monsoon was, she was the main character to me, and he felt like a side character. Boom, that's his best performance so far, easily. Obviously standing on the landmine, that really showed how much of a great actor he is. 73 yards is in it for like 2 minutes. And then with this, obviously, it's not just him and Ruby. They're on a screens for the whole episode until the end.
The episode kind of subverts the idea of like the kind of utopian society, you know, because I think when Ncuti was cast as a Doctor, everyone thought like, oh well, it's the first black main Doctor, when will there be an episode that's kind of about that? Kind of like how the Witchfinders in Jodie's era was about her being a woman, and I like that RTD kind of flipped that, where you expect it to be this kind of like historical, where the Doctor's put in a position where they kind of have to get out of. Instead, it's like it's a future society that he's kind of locked out of.
I've heard the argument in the last couple of hours online that the story's meant to be a pastiche, it's meant to be a parody. They're all meant to be one-dimensional apart from the one character that doesn't fit in it. And I feel for me the argument there is, if you're going to do a story like this, and that's your point, don't make any of it really strongly about race. Because it's just not a good way to handle it when you're juggling all these other elements, and it's not a really good way to handle your black lead Doctor's first story about race. If you don't have a person of colour to cover it in a more predominant way, I actually think it would have been a better choice to not do a story like this.
I think as conflicting and as I feel about this, there's a lot to discuss and a lot of feelings that get stoked about this episode, and that's one positive I think everyone can have with this.
And I think it will open a discussion with white fans about race to some degree on microaggressions. I worry that instead of there being anything else for them to pull from this episode, they're going to instead have to talk to fans of colour and find discussion points with them, because I don't think the episode is really giving people commentary. I don't think it's really giving them anything other than observation.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Glasgow Doctor Who Society YouTube channel.